usually burnout is happening because I am not spending time for myself learning. That's what I found for me. So you'll need to figure out for you what is still important beyond being the instructor, the studio owner, for me, for being the vet. But I know that I need to still have a student in me.
Pole dancers, start your engines. It's time for another episode of the Pole Position Podcast with your host, Beastie.
So we are here today with Malena, who's also my pole mom. So it's a very special episode and a huge inspiration to starting this podcast because this woman does it all and no pressure. And I think that there's so much to learn from you and the way that you navigate your life that I am like dying to hear about how you do it all. And because you also have a very, very cool job that I think a lot of people might not know.
May not.
So we should start there. So, thank you so much for doing this with me.
Of course.
Yeah.
Always happy to support you.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me about your muggle job.
Oh, my muggle job. Yes, I am a vet. I'm a veterinarian for small animals, so dogs and kitties. And I started that really at the same time that I started doing pole. Well, I was in the animal industry for years also. Started as a vet tech in probably 1996. So now you're getting an idea of my age. But yeah, started as a vet tech in 96 and then went on to vet school and graduated in 2005, which is also when I started doing pole. They all just, came together. So yeah. And now here we are, 2024. So yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more about your pole origin story, like why you started pole dancing?
It is a longish story. So I started off as a competitive gymnast, and also that just kind of naturally falls in with dance because you do dance with gymnastics. Dance ended up really kind of overtaking my life when I felt like I was kind of burnt out on the competitive gymnast route. And I danced, from about, did gymnastics starting at about age 4. And then the dance again followed through. I kept dancing through my college years, university and everything, performing and all of that. And so once I was finally done with school, I really felt ready to come back to the Gilroy area. It was definitely time to come back because I wanted to be with my family and my friends and see them again. And I still wanted to dance. I wasn't done dancing, but I was coming more from like jazz and contemporary. And I knew when I left this area that really the dance opportunities weren't that available. I mean, if you're a teenager and learning how to dance, that's fine. But as an adult, I was almost 30. I really wanted to have camaraderie with people my own age and still be able to dance. And it just wasn't there for the contemporary jazz side of me that I really enjoyed. And then I came across a new pole studio. I was like, oh, okay, let's give this a try. And so I've been doing it ever since. Like it just really felt natural because it was a combining of both dance and gymnastics. And it just quickly became a passion of mine, and I had no idea it was going to end up developing into, being a studio owner and where I'm at now. But I'm just grateful that things fell into my lap the way they did.
Was this the location that you started?
This is the location I started. It. Yeah, this was it. Yeah, so it was owned by someone else, by Joy Booker. She opened the studio, so we should be very grateful to her because she was the pioneer to, get this groundwork at least to lay the foundation. And then I was, reluctant, but I felt like it was my duty to continue forward. So, yeah, and I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. I love this part. So, yeah.
Did you ever expect to, like, when you came in here, to, like, I'm going to own this studio?
Absolutely not.
Like, how long did that take till you were like, ooh, I like want to, like, why did you, like, what was your inspiration for like pole becoming a bit of a career for you?
Honestly, there was never a point in my life where I said, I want this to be my career. It never happened that way. Everything with pole, honestly, has been very natural, and I would say just like set in my lap. I think that's really the best way I can describe it. Things just kind of developed the way they did. There was never a specific point in my life where I said, this is what I want to do with my career, which is quite different from veterinary medicine. You're on a track, you're doing this like, okay, this is my goal, I got to do this. It was not like that ever. It was just more like, okay, I'm doing pole, I love, dancing, this is awesome, I'm learning. And then I became an instructor shortly thereafter. And then, when the old owner was done, she was done. And I was not done with pole. I didn't want the studio to close. And so I continued. I continued learning. I continued, teaching. However, many people still wanted to keep it up. Mm-hmm. And lots of different variations of having the studio, but I'm just so grateful that it developed into what it has now. And it's just always amazing when I think back on where we started from and to see what has developed. I just never had any clue that I would be gifted with so many wonderful people in my life and friends and like a family, basically. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
How did you start navigating ownership in conjunction with being a full-time vet?
It is challenging, and I think it's always a work in progress. There's always things I figure out that will make things easier, to make my schedule more efficient. But it's a lot of work. A lot of long days, and I do get tired, hence I've got lovely bags that I try to cover. But it is a lot of long days, and I just try to be very present in each of my facets. When I'm, doing my vet med work, I try to stay very focused and present on that. And when I'm doing studio work, I just try to stay focused on that. When I'm spending time with my husband, phone goes away, pole goes away, I just try to maintain that level of intention. So that way, when I am at that present moment, I can give it my full energy.
Was that hard to learn how to do?
Yes, absolutely.
What do you think that, one, would you say that you're good at it now? Do you feel like you're doing it? Are you happy with your focus in each of these areas? And then two, what exactly, how did you practice to get good at that?
I really had to work hard at being comfortable saying no and setting boundaries. And that still gets to me because, of course, you want to be able to make everybody happy. But the reality is when you have, two large passions in your life, you really run the risk of burning yourself at the wick on both ends, right? And I have to watch that for me because I will definitely do that to the point where I just collapse on the floor.
Yeah.
So I need to make sure I don't. But yeah, learning how to say no and being comfortable with that and know that people won't be happy when you say no and you just have to okay, sorry. And set boundaries, realistic boundaries, okay, I am, these are my office hours. This is what I got to give you. Beyond that, yeah.
Have you ever felt pressure from work when you do state your boundaries? Have you ever been treated maybe there's so many companies that you're expected to work past when you're working, especially if you're a salaried employee. Have you experienced anything like that?
Not really. I'm very grateful for my boss. So but culturally, yes. I mean, there's, a lot of OCD and type A-ism inherent in, the medical field, and, I'm right up there. So I have to be very watchful of how much I'm getting into that bad part of it. So there's more of an internal dialogue that I get, like, okay, I really need to stay and, do more, but there's always going to be more. And if I don't specifically make myself leave at a certain time, like, there's just always going to be more. There's always more that I can do. There's always someone else I can call. There's always, one more quick conversation I can have with a client. Like, I could stay there all night, which I used to do in the beginning. It'd be 12-hour days. Oh. And it just had to stop, because otherwise I was going to just burn myself out.
Yeah. Right. There's a level of also, like, yes, we're very busy with pole in our life, but it provides like fuel to the soul that it doesn't feel it doesn't always feel like, oh God, I need to go do this. It doesn't feel like something you have to do. It's something that you want to do. And then that energizes you so that you can take on a harder day at work.
Yeah, exactly. And what I've noticed is, by me making sure I've set those boundaries and, making sure I leave myself a certain amount of time to finish up and get out the door, I do feel present and ready for the next day. Like, I feel less burnt out, because I have pretty much figured out how to make sure I have, my studio time, and then I have my vet med time, and it just helps sometimes when those days get a little extra heavy. Yeah, because I love working with animals, but sometimes it gets hard. I think a lot of people in the medical field can probably say that. So you need something else to kind of reset your brain. Yeah.
Especially with animals, and especially when you have such a soft spot for animals like you do.
Yeah.
Some days are going to be harder than others.
Of course.
Significantly more taxing than somebody else's other 9 to 5.
I mean, I'm sure that other people that, have their jobs, they have their fair share of stressors. So I don't want to discount that, and it's just different kind of stress. But yeah, definitely I recommend making sure you find something that kind of resets your brain and helps you kind of get out of that rat spinning in the brain. Sometimes that happens. Yeah.
That's probably a really key, important mindset to have too, where you're looking at pole or an extracurricular in the terms of, like, this is my reset. This is not an additional thing to do. Right. Like, this isn't my to-do list. This is something that, like, I want to do for me.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that, what about the days that it's hard to think like that? Because there are days that we're going to come to pole and we're like, I just don't have it in me.
I still do it. I know. I still do it. I mean, there have been rare instances where I've had to just say, I can't come in. And I'm super grateful for, having, people like Mikey that have just been able to step in and, take a class for me when I've asked. So yeah, I mean, thankfully those are few and far between, because mostly it just, I get here, I might be tired, but once I start getting everybody warmed up and I see everybody in class, like, my head is different. My headspace is different. Yeah.
You seem to be very good at setting boundaries. So I want to get into that more.
Okay.
Because I feel like maybe not everybody is, or setting boundaries is, it's not even necessarily something that you're good or you're bad at, but it's difficult to do. Because like you said, not everybody's going to want to hear no, or, people might have expectations of you that you're not able to upkeep, which is, I want to get into how that's like not our responsibility.
Yeah.
Like that was your expectation that you set, not mine.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious if you have any tips on setting boundaries.
I think the biggest struggle that most of us probably have is more the internal dialogue, right? Like, there's that sense of guilt that you feel like, oh, I just said no, and then now I'm, somebody behind me is giving me a snarky face. And learning to be comfortable in that no, and just saying, it is what it is. I have to do this at the end of the day so that I can continue to be a helpful individual for this job. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So then in the midst of everything, how do you prioritize your rest and your self-care? What does that look like, and how do you do it?
I am tired, don't get me wrong. So the days when I do like work and studio, it's a long day. And at the end of the work week, you'll ask my husband, I've literally, I collapse with a glass of wine, on the floor. So yes, I will get up at 5:45 and then head on up. Do my work day. I do make sure to give myself a break in between, and I do try to get a power nap. So it does make a difference. I've learned how to get a power nap in, which is like 15 minutes, and then finish up at work, and then head on over to the studio. Jam write my records, and then head to the studio, and then I get home about probably, it's like 9:30.
Yeah.
So it is a long day, and I probably am lacking sleep on those days. I will be absolutely honest.
Yeah.
So yes, there are those days I'm not getting enough sleep. So there's probably something I could fine tune still on the balancing act. I don't know if I've quite figured out that one. It's a work in progress. So very grateful that my husband likes to cook. So I get home and there's usually something for us to eat, whether we do our tapas night or he'll get tacos or he'll make food. Usually there's something ready for me, praise the Lord. So I have some fuel and I go straight to bed. So yes, there are those long days. Also, though, on the days when I am not working and I don't have to be at the studio, I make sure to get plenty of rest. I make sure that I'm eating healthy and not overtraining. And I also really feel strongly about self-care. So I have an awesome body worker. I have an awesome acupuncturist. And that really does help keep a lot of the tweaks that we get in our body, whether it be stressors or just pull related, that really does make a huge difference for keeping my body functioning. So a very long-winded answer, but
no, it's good. It's so good.
Yeah.
So how does your husband feel about everything that you do? Have you guys had struggles with your schedule? How did you guys kind of work through being busy? He also commutes.
He does. He also commutes. And thankfully we've known each other long enough that he has finally grown to understand that this is who I am. I just keep going. I just keep moving. I can't stop. And he knows that I do need my personal independence time, but that, when we're together, it's just awesome. So, yes, of course, there was a little part where he would feel a little bit butthurt, why aren't you spending more time with me? But he had to get over it. And it's good. Yeah.
Him and I have that in common. And same way with my husband. He's exactly like you, where I'm like, I really miss you and I want to see you more. Yeah. And there's days or months or weeks where it's harder.
Yeah.
And then there's times where I'm like, oh, this is easy. I don't see him very often. And then sometimes it's just harder than others.
And so the biggest thing that I would tell people in similar scenarios is be present in that moment. If you have a really tight schedule and you have that person that you love and care about, be present with them. Don't be looking at your phone all the time. Put it away. This is your time to spend with them and talk with them and hang out with them, right? Mm-hmm. Right.
How do you feel that pole has enhanced your life?
I have definitely developed even more of a stronger sense of self and who I am, and I feel much more comfortable in who I am and just embracing that, because pole truly is about loving yourself for who you are. I mean, there's other facets to it, but I mean, that is a huge part that has developed just more of a internal sense of strength. And, clearly we get that nice outer strength that happens from pole too. But inner self-confidence, that not that I didn't have some of that before, but it just was further developed, I think, from pole.
And has that intersected with work and how you function at work?
Yeah, I think so. Again, if we're talking about boundary setting and feeling comfortable and saying no, it's just that stronger sense of self and inner confidence. Yeah.
Do all of your coworkers and your boss, does everybody at work know what you do?
No, we don't really talk. Wait a minute. There's some people I know, I don't want to talk about it, but it's fine. No.
There's only probably just a few.
Yeah,
it's just not something. Is there a reason why you choose to keep those separate?
Yeah, I mean, there's still going to be some stigma about pole and what they perceive and what it represents. And so I just don't talk about it. I just try to intuit each individual, and I've grown to know who's, cool with it and who we just don't talk about it.
Yeah. Okay.
There's so many other things we can talk about.
Yeah. I struggle with that. Literally every single person at work knows that I pole dance.
That's good.
Every person, and I don't have anything else to talk about. I'm either talking about my dog or I'm talking about pole dancing. Especially if I'm competing. That's it. I'm oh, sorry guys. I'm really sore today. I'm in comp training. Everything. I just can't. I can't refrain from doing it. So speaking of being sore, do you have any tips on not overtraining and managing? If we don't have all the time in the world to condition and to just do a lot of things all of the time, and so I feel a lot of people are oh, this is my one day a week that I get to go to pole. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to scale back so that you're not overdoing it.
Oh yeah.
So maybe if you have any tips on overtraining and how to prioritize training.
Yeah, I remember the beginning, because you get, especially when you start that trick acquisition, you get in that mindset and it gets super addicting, and you just I'm going to train all day. Oh, I totally did that in the beginning. I'm going to fess up, and you get injured.
Yep.
I had to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I would literally do all day on the pole all day. And then I would end up with a back injury, a shoulder injury, and so what I have set is 2-hour window for maybe doing tricks one day on my own. And then the next day I'm going to rotate and do maybe a conditioning day for a couple hours. And then the next day, maybe do some choreography work for a couple hours. And then the next day do some floor work. And so that way it's at least varied movement. Mm-hmm. And it isn't just doing trick all day long where your muscles get angry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that would be a big tip I would give to people. Don't pull all day.
All day, every day.
Yeah, I know. In the beginning phases, you're I'm fine, until you get injured. So yeah. Rotate, make sure you're getting some good cross training time in, and you will notice improvement by doing that, even though you're not pulling every single day.
What does your cross training look like?
Conditioning. I mean, I've got my own little set of stuff at home. I've got,
Like weights?
Weights. I've got a pull-up bar, a ball, TheraBands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to somebody who wants to pursue pole, or a student that is appearing to like get very involved in the pole world?
Make sure you prioritize your own personal time. It's so important. Like, yeah, we love our hobbies, we love what we do, and both can be super time consuming, but make sure you're also giving yourself that appropriate downtime away from all of that, something totally different. Whether it be spending time with your family, or for me, it's crafting. Like, I'm gonna over here and make some jewelry. Just something totally different. So that way you are not burning yourself out or getting yourself sick because you're not getting enough rest time. So yeah, make sure you're checking in with that.
How have you come back from burnout?
For me, usually burnout is happening because I am not spending time for myself learning. That's what I found for me. So you'll need to figure out for you what is still important beyond being the instructor, the studio owner, for me, for being the vet. But I know that I need to still have a student in me and keep learning. So when I stop learning, that's when I get burnt out. So I have to make sure I'm taking, vet classes, continuing with my continuing education. We have to anyway for our license, but also for, pole. I make sure I'm taking classes for myself that challenge my brain, because when I'm not doing that, then I'm just like, why am I doing this? I'm not learning. I'm like, I feel like I've plateaued. I'm not doing, yeah.
Wow. That's really good advice.
Okay, good.
I really love that. I think that we should end it there.
Okay.
That was so good.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much again for doing this.
You're welcome.
This was so much fun. I wasn't fully aware of like how you even started to own Ultimate. So
Yeah.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
So yay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.